they're a wild, out of control, non-journalistic organization that has a very, very small group. And anything that you don't see until Goldberg shows you, you can't believe. This is like Shifty Schiff saying, "I have here 3 people who can testify that Trump was personally involved in Russian collusion." Oh, could I see that? No. Can we see it now, Shifty? No. So we just got to go with what we got. First thing, what we got is, excuse me for saying this, it's going to get people all out of joint. There's no harm, no foul. Whatever the mistakes that were made in having this guy on the chat, whatever the hell it was, for some reason, by the grace of God or whatever, it came out perfect. No one was jeopardized. No lives were jeopardized. America pulled off a mission. It did something that Biden hadn't done in years, which is to take care of to rein in the Houthis who had attacked us 170 times. Yep, that's right, 170 times. They killed American military. They injured seriously at least 40 or 50 of our soldiers and military. They killed American contractors, all without any kind of meaningful response from the traitor coward in the White House, about which the Atlantic never wrote at all. And then Trump is now putting them in their place, which is to kind of take the Houthis out of existence. They've attacked international shipping in the Black Sea. One of the legitimate reporters described them as the Barbary pirates, but they're not the bad guys. The bad guys here are the people who planned this. Now, somehow, they included this guy, he says, accidentally in their chat. He was listed there as JG, and I just wondered, well, how in hell would they have not have seen that? Well, JG happens to be the initials, and I'll get the exact name of one of the major people involved in international trade, who sits in very often and participates in these foreign policy and discussions because of the sanctions. And my assumption, is sure, they saw JG, and there was a JG who participated. Now, should they have gone further? Should they have a conversation like this on Signal? Yeah, all after the fact. The simple answer is no. They shouldn't have done it. They made a mistake. It could have been a terrible mistake. It turns out to be as they say in the law, harmless error. That's when a judge makes a mistake or the prosecutor does in the trial, but there's such overwhelming evidence of guilt that it doesn't really affect the outcome of the case. This did not affect anybody's outcome. In fact, this was a highly successful project, and this mistake should not take away from that success, nor should it in any way inhibit us from continuing to pound the Houthis and to keep this focused on that, and not the fact that somehow this guy negligently was allowed to participate. He claims that during the time he participated, which I think started on March 11th and lasted until the 15th, he thought at the beginning, when he got the first couple of chats, that this was a mistake, and that not only that, it might be a setup. It might be somebody setting him up. The reality is, of course, it wasn't. He was actually made part of the chain, and a couple of things came out that are very, very interesting. Everybody is who they say they are. Nobody was out of character here. The people who tend to be isolationists were opposing, not really opposing as they wanted to put it off, and the people who tend to be more aggressive wanted to do it. And I think Stephen Miller turns out, he's SM, turns out to be the one that calls and basically cuts off all the BS by saying, "Hey, the boss wants to do this." That kind of changes everything, right? And Pete Hegseth probably demonstrated something they thought he lacked, which was excellent judgment in weighing both possibilities and coming to the conclusion that if we waited, we would look weak. I mean, the Houthis were now attacking Israel as well. They had done some of that, but largely their attacks were in the Red Sea and on us. And now they started joining attacks on Israel. Now, their attacks on Israel are not, I mean, I shouldn't say this. Any attack, God forbid, could go through. But Israel has a much better chance of stopping them than it does, let's say, the missiles from Gaza or Lebanon. Yemen is all the way at the bottom of Saudi Arabia. It's a long trip. But they were joining in the recent attacks on Israel. And also continuing to be a major menace in the Red Sea. And the president had told them to stop or he was going to act. And you can only carry that out for so long if you want to be credible. And that's what the debate was about. This is some of the conversation when it started. The thing was known as if you want to look at the board there, you'll see this was known as the Houthi PC small group. And JV is Vance, and John Ratcliffe is, of course, John Ratcliffe, the head of CIA, and they communicate with each other, and he's included in it. He didn't communicate. He sees this, and it says, "Excellent, a good start." Presumably, there was a chat before this, an exchange of texts in which there was some outline given of the pros and cons of doing something in Yemen. Now, Vance raised the issue that number one, only something like is it 3%? Only 3% of our imports go through the Suez Canal, and massive percentage of European imports. And he was one objecting that we're doing Europe's work for it and not getting paid for it. And number two, he thought it should be put off a bit. And then Pete Hegseth responded to him that he had weighed everything, and he agreed with him that he doesn't like doing Europe's dirty work either, but that this was really our issue. After all, they had attacked Americans. They had made a lot of attacks on Americans. And the fact is that you have to act with expedition, or you're going to start looking like Biden. Or he didn't say this, but essentially that we have to move quickly. And Vance immediately said, Vance actually when he objected to it said, "Of course I'll go with the judgment of the group and keep my whatever objections I have, private. I'm just raising these." I think he knew that the majority of the group was going to come out in favor of doing it, and I think he probably knew that whatever the majority of the group wanted to do or not, the president was going to do it, which is essentially what Stephen Miller said when he interrupted. And in a way, one would think that Stephen Miller might know the president's mind better than anyone. He's with him. Well, they all are actually, but I mean, Miller has been with him from almost day one. And Miller kind of shut it down, all the back and forth, by saying, you all know the president wants this. So, and then Hegseth said that he thought on balance they should definitely go forward. And then Vance says, Pete Hegseth said, "If you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out." And actually, there's a response that's left out there in which Pete agrees. He hates it, but we have to do it. And let's just make sure our messaging is tight here. And if there are things we can do up front to minimize risk to Saudi oil facilities, we should do it. There was a concern that it would raise the price of oil that had been raised also, which, by the way, would also help Russia. If the price of oil went up, Russia either exists or doesn't exist based on the price of oil. It's a pretty good barometer of whether the people in Russia are hungry or the people in Russia are doing okay. And our objective should be to keep the price of oil low. And of course, we can affect that objective by opening up, as Trump is doing, a lot of American oil, natural gas, and other energy. But the interesting part of this, and the reason why this is harmless error, no harm, no foul, is the fact that this couldn't have been used by anyone. The operational information was conveyed around 11:55 in the afternoon, which is 2 hours before the attack took place. Now, we don't see any operational information. And Goldberg says he got it, but he's not going to reveal it because he doesn't want to affect national security or endanger anyone. I don't know. Flip a coin on that one. The guy's credibility is zero. He could reveal some of it without, he's already done a lot of harm by revealing this in a way. In a way, he hasn't, because he's shown how careful and deliberative this administration is. These are very smart people. If you read this, these are extremely smart people weighing the things you'd want them to weigh before they go kill people. I'm very impressed, actually, with the contribution and particularly of Pete, and also the vice president. I tend not to be an isolationist. So if I were part of this conversation, I'd be saying we should attack Yemen 2 weeks ago. But I'm sorry. I think America has to show its power if you want to contain bullies. And bullies will take a certain amount of tough language, but you got to show them. You got to show them that, occasionally you got to show them you have the cards and you're not just bluffing. And I think that's where Pete came out, and that's where the majority, and I think that's where Walz came out also. Walz gets a lot of criticism because he didn't notice JG. But come on, everybody. No, if I were part of it, I would check them all out as part of it. They were all responsible for intelligence. So this is a joint responsibility. They all made a mistake communicating this way, in which some reporter can get to see it. But this was not classified information, so there's no crime involved here. It did not result in anyone being hurt or jeopardize the mission. So there's no deterrent effect you have to create, other than they're being clearly embarrassed and being more careful in the future about this. So at just so you get it straight, at 11:44, he sees a message from Hegseth saying basically that they're going to go forward. He then well, let me read you what Hegseth says, because this is, if you look at the board now, if you look at one up there now, at 11:44, Goldberg says Hegseth posted update with operational details. Said first detonations would be felt in 2 hours. That's exactly correct. That's what happened. Within 2 hours, the attack took place. At 1:55, Goldberg saw a post about the explosions, and then at 1:48, Walz described that the mission was a success, which it was. And as you can see, No war plans were revealed. No classified information was revealed. He says that he received operational details, which he held back. We don't know what those operational details are, and we don't know if he's telling the truth. I tend to think that to support his attack on the administration, if he got operational details, he would reveal them, and he could easily redact those things that would identify people or identify methods. But something that kind of supports a guy of no credibility. So the end result is they got something to complain about. The administration is going to have to get tighter on how they do this, and the president is reacting to it pretty much the way he should, which is to defend Walz, who did nothing deliberately wrong. If you got rid of everyone who made a mistake, Lincoln would have to have. Lincoln probably would have to have resigned after the second or third general that he picked turned out to be a failure. How many times do you get to pick a general that's a failure? Once, twice in a civil war. And Eisenhower would probably have had to resign as the commander of our forces in Europe when he got completely baffled and fooled by Hitler's movement of troops from the Eastern Front to the Western Front that created his terribly mistaken prediction that we'd be in Berlin by Christmas. And at Christmas, we were taking the worst losses of the war in the Battle of the Bulge. And there were all these hundreds of thousands of unexpected German troops that, because we weren't careful enough in checking our intelligence, because we had solved their signal. Then the Germans figured out that we had solved it, and they changed it, and we didn't notice that. Now that had consequences, more losses in the war than at any other time. But of course, it would have been ridiculous to replace Eisenhower, because that's what happens. You sometimes get faked out. You sometimes get fooled. You look at the judgments they were making. These are highly competent people at a level way above the prior administration. And the end result was a big success for America. So let's see if we can listen to the responses of the president and of Walz, because I think when they explain it well in their own words, which they should get a chance to do. So let's see if we can play that.
Yes, Mr. President, you asked about lessons. I think there's a lot of journalists in this city who have made big names for themselves, making up lies about this president, whether it's the Russia hoax or making up lies about Gold Star families. And this one in particular, I've never met, don't know, never communicated with, and we are looking into and reviewing how the heck he got into this room. But I'll tell you what, the world owes President Trump a favor. Under Biden, global shipping was shut down. Pinprick attacks, months between them, our destroyers being fired upon dozens of times. President Trump took decisive action with his national security team, took out the head missileer, knocked out missiles, knocked out headquarters, knocked out communication sites. And for once, as we hear, as you will all hear from every one of our allies, thank God for American leadership again. Thank God for American strength. You're welcome, And look, we had a national security team that was coordinating these efforts. As Director Ratcliffe testified today, his first day on the job, he was introduced to this app on his government systems at the CIA and at the State Department and otherwise. So look, this journalist, Mr. President, wants the world talking about more hoaxes and this kind of nonsense rather than the freedom that you're enabling. And a key part of our sovereignty is open sea lanes and knocking the crap out of terrorists which is exactly what your team and Pete Hegseth, a good friend and fellow veteran, is leading the charge on, and it's an honor to be part of it.
Let's come back to you.
Well, I think that's, that's that's a pretty honest explanation. I mean, one of the benefits of this is we got real insight into their decision making, didn't we? I think it was the Wall Street Journal or maybe the Post that did an editorial. Basically, of course, they tend to be more interventionist and isolationist, pretty much like I am, and they tended to say, well, now the president knows who agreed with him and who didn't. I think the president knew that before, guys. But I mean, and you know that what they say publicly is what they say privately, and that they're enormously thoughtful people who can make a mistake because they're human. And boy, it's nothing compared to, for example, deliberately taking troops out before you take the civilians out of Afghanistan and getting hundreds and hundreds of them killed. When in fact, it wasn't just a mistake because he was warned not to do it and he did it anyway. Or giving back the Bagram Air Base and leaving it there, basically giving it back to China when he was told that that would be disastrous. No one noticed this for an understandable reason. And in the future, things have got to be double checked. So that's where we stand. Why don't we just play Tulsi Gabbard or Ratcliffe? Actually, let's play Ratcliffe and what he said about nothing classified, nothing unlawful, and then his statement about Peter Strzok.
It is permissible to use to communicate and coordinate for work purposes, provided, Senator, that any decisions that are made are also recorded through formal channels. Right. So those were procedures that were implemented. My staff implemented those processes, followed those processes, complied with those processes, and finally, just please. So my communications, to be clear, in a signal message group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information.
I don't know. Can you be any clearer than that? Now, this is the only guy who got the hard drive correct. Almost every intelligence official in 2020 who had served America for the last 10 years of pretty much the worst intelligence mistakes in our history, wrote a letter saying that it had the earmarks of Russian disinformation. It was Ratcliffe, who was then in charge of the intelligence services, who said that's absurd. There's nothing at all indicating Russian disinformation. It is what it appears to be. He was the only one who got it right. So now those same people who were lying about that and all the animals on the Democrats who were yelling and screaming and posturing, and who are we going to believe, him or them? Let's listen to him on Peter Strzok. It'll give you an idea of who he is and the real deal. This is number 5. This is number 6.
The approximately 50,000 text messages that I've seen with your personal beliefs like F Trump, stop Trump, impeach Trump, go ahead and confirm on the record that none of that occurred on an official FBI device or on official FBI time. Go ahead and do that.
Sir, no, they did. Many of them did.
Oh, they did. Okay, so
50,000, sir.
So really, no, I'll give you a chance at the end. So what you really meant to say was that when you said you never crossed that bright, inviolable line, what you meant to say was, except for 50,000 times, except for hundreds of times a day where I went back and forth, expressing my personal opinions about effing Trump and stopping Trump and impeaching Trump on official FBI phones, on official FBI time. Other than that, you never crossed that line. I'm sure there are 13,000 FBI agents out there that are beaming with pride at how clearly you've drawn that line. Agent Strzok, are you starting to understand why some folks out there don't believe a word you say, and why it's especially troubling that you, of all people, are at the center of the 3 highest profile investigations in recent times that involved President Trump, and that you were in charge of an investigation investigating, gathering evidence against Donald Trump, a subject that you hated, that you wanted to F him, to stop him, to impeach him. And do you see why that might call into question everything you've touched on all of those investigations? Chairman, I'm done with this witness, and I yield back.
That's a pretty damn good lawyer. And that was something really serious. And that guy got away with it completely. Tell me the upper echelon of the Democratic Party is not made up of absolutely people who are damaging to America, to what America stands for, to our rights, to our freedoms. And that's what we're up against. And this mission was a very good one. It was one that had to be done. And it's one that's got to continue. We got to take the Houthis out. And pretty soon we're going to have to deal with Iran. So maybe this was a good opportunity to wake people up, and they got to be more careful. And of course, the reality is that the Democrats are not going to give you the opportunity to do that. They're going to yell, they're going to scream, they're going to posture, but it's not going to go anywhere, because the only mistakes that count are the ones that mean something, that resulted in something. You know, it's like when you make an error. If you played baseball and you make an error, you are just praying that the pitcher strikes the next guy out, or you get out of the inning with no runs because everybody forgets the error. But if you make the error, like happened with the Chicago Cubs, someone reminded me, I was at that game. And they didn't really make an error, but the guy interfered with the ball. And then they started making errors, and then everybody remembers it. So we'll be back very, very shortly, and we'll go over, I think, yet another example of how corrupted the Democrat judges are in their effort to stop anything that Trump is doing. I think this is about as clear as it can get, or maybe possibly rather stupid. Remember, it is a Democrat judge who can't define what a woman is, which should certainly disqualify you for any serious position in anything. We'll be back very shortly.
You're still looking good.
I'm still feeling good. You know, I've got all your MyPillow products. Mattress topper, bed sheets, MyPillows, towels, slippers, blankets.
I'm interrupting this commercial to do something I've never done before. Get 2 MyPillows absolutely free on orders of $100 or more. I can't do this forever, so get on board with this great sale today. Our best-selling 6-piece bath towel sets or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Our famous standard MyPillow is only $14.98. Queens, $18.98. King size, only $1 more. Body pillows, $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bed sheet sets. Any size, any color. So go to MyPillow.com or call that number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And when you spend $100 or more, get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
You all know I stand by the truth. And if I put my name on something, I truly believe in it. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to something I'm incredibly proud of. My own brand of organic specialty coffee, Rudy Coffee. Believe me when I say it's the best coffee you'll ever try. It's smooth, rich, chocolatey, and gentle on your stomach. It's so good, I even recommend drinking it black. It comes in 3 varieties, including what I promise is the best decaf you'll ever have. You can order now by scanning the QR code on your screen or by visiting rudy.coffee. By supporting Rudy Coffee, you're not just treating yourself to exceptional coffee, you're also supporting our cause, the cause of truth, justice, and American democracy. You'll also be supporting the Call to Action nonprofit, which is devoted to helping veterans and first responders, so you can make a difference and taste the difference by ordering today at rudy.coffee. Tired of volatile stocks and tiny dividend yields? Here's something different. Imagine collecting steady monthly income from America's richest oil fields without owning a single oil stock. While everyone else stresses about the market, you could be earning passive royalty income month after month. This unique investment has nothing to do with drilling, exploration, or operations. You simply collect your share of the profits when oil companies pump oil. The Oxford Club's Mark Lichtenfeld has found what he calls the perfect income investment, a unique oil royalty opportunity that's still flying under Wall Street's radar. And you can get started with just $25. Head to rudyoilboom.com now to discover more. That's rudyoilboom.com. Stop worrying about the market and start collecting oil royalty checks instead. Welcome back to the Rudy Giuliani Show. As I told you, we're gonna get some insight into a Democrat judge. As we pointed out last night, something like 90% of the injunctions that have been entered against this administration, which is more injunctions and TROs than were entered against Biden. Or Bush or Obama in their entire administrations. And Biden acted unlawfully constantly. What about the student loans that were declared unconstitutional by the court? And then he went ahead and did it again. Chief Justice Roberts didn't find it necessary to make any comment about that. Nor did he make any comments while Lawfare played out in a way that probably is going to be one of the most embarrassing moments in the history of this country. Or maybe the January 6th situation is when all of it comes out, and we'll find out that the Chief Justice sat by while something much worse than the internment of the Japanese during World War II took place, and to American citizens. And that's really at the crux of this. The people that were moved to El Salvador from the United States are not citizens of the United States. They are to a person. They're Venezuelan criminals and members of the Tren de Aragua group. And the president has used the 1798 Alien Enemies Act to justify his being able to remove them quickly. He doesn't really, I think that's part of the problem. The law justifies this, but the law is so old that there's a real discomfort. There's a real discomfort with it. What he could have done, and it gets you to the same result, he could have just declared a national emergency, which the invasion of 12 million, 15 million, 20 million people, of which we probably don't know 3/4 of them. The amount of crime we have going on right now. In New York City, crime is down 3-4%. Although in some boroughs, 40, 50, 60% of the crime are committed by illegal aliens. If they weren't here, crime would probably be down 10%. And Adams would be looking a lot better, right? And that's true elsewhere. We're going to go over some of those illegal alien situations, like in Massachusetts, where it's an epidemic of rapists and murderers that they protect. So during the argument of the appeal from the injunction that was issued, saying that the rapists, murderers, criminals, terrorists, and that are part of Tren de Aragua can't be either kept in El Salvador or returned to Venezuela. They got to be brought back to the United. We got to bring them back. The appeal was to the D.C. Court of Appeals. This is the Court of Appeals that, of course, has watched over the destruction of the Constitution with regard to the people, who were involved in January 6th. They're being held without trial for extensive periods of time, a year, year and a half, 2 years. People given 3, 4 years in prison for merely entering, old women, old men, veterans. Talking about due process, to listen to these judges talk about due process makes me sick to my stomach. Judge Boasberg presided over January 6 cases, and as our reporter in Washington told you, he's one of the worst. He doesn't. I mean, his issue is these criminals have not been given due process. He didn't give due process to the January 6 people, just like I never got due process in the District of Columbia Court. The judge that I had was probably one of the worst of all. And Boasberg was right there with her in destroying the constitutional rights of these American citizens because of the hatred of Trump, just like she destroyed my rights because I was close to Trump. So this Court of Appeals did nothing to rectify that. This case was appealed to that Court of Appeals. So Justin Walker, who was one of the judges, he was appointed by Trump. Patricia Millett was appointed by Barack Obama. And Karen LaCraft Henderson was appointed by George H. Bush. So you can figure we got a 2-to-1 court here, right? Well, Millett, though, is completely ridiculous. First, she compared the treatment of these people to Nazis. The way the Nazis, it was worse than the way the Nazis were treated. I mean, how does she know how the Nazis were treated? Was she there? I mean, I don't know how the Nazis were treated. They were prisoners of war. They weren't terrorists, and they weren't illegal aliens. They were prisoners of war who fought in an army and may or may not have agreed with Hitler. And I don't know how they were treated. And I looked at the treatment of these people. Later on America's Mayor Live, I'm going to interview Bernie Kerik, who was both the superintendent of a prison in New Jersey and ran Rikers Island and made it one of the most successful prisons in America, probably a model. So he can tell you, looking at their treatment, if they were treated in any way that's unusual for people who were being deported from the United States, largely for being part of a gang that kills people. I didn't see anybody beaten up. I didn't see anybody harmed, anybody hurt. So I don't know what she's talking about, that they were treated worse than Nazis. And the minute Democrats bring up Nazis, you know they're lying. I mean, it's a really stupid thing for a judge to do, who's supposed to be thoughtful. But this one was really indicated that she's not working with the brain power that a federal judge should be working with. And she's talking about how they were picked up and, just sent away. And not mentioning many of them are accused and convicted of crimes. Many of them were let out by sanctuary city laws, and the federal government was never notified that these rapists were hanging around New York and Massachusetts, and most of them were in the Democrat sanctuary city and sanctuary state jurisdictions where you don't get reported to ICE. In fact, she should be concerned about all those people who were protecting them going to prison, or about Laken Riley, who was killed by one of them. So she's really concerned about their due process rights. Once again, she's concerned about due process, never having thought about that for the January 6 people. And then she says to the government, to the government lawyer, then y'all could have picked me up on Saturday and thrown me on a plane, claiming I was a member of Tren de Aragua and giving me no chance to protest it. Now, I don't know what the lawyer said in response to it. I know what I would have said. I would have said, Judge, I didn't know you weren't a citizen. How the hell did you become a judge? I mean, she missed the complete point of the case. They're not citizens. Therefore, they're not entitled to the full group of rights of due process, which were taken away from the January 6th people who are citizens and often serve this country in the military or law enforcement. I mean, they're part of an emergency that's being created in this country with an invasion of 15 million, 20 million people, more than came in Ellis Island in 60 or 70 years. No, Judge, they couldn't have picked you up on Saturday and just said you were a member of Trent because you're a citizen, jackass. I wouldn't have called her a jackass because that would have probably got me put in jail. But I would have sarcastically said to her, "You mean you're not a citizen, Judge? Gee, you really kind of missed the point of this case, didn't you? Think maybe you should recuse yourself if you can't get the main point of the case?" No, Judge, sounds like you are irrationally afraid of being arrested. Remember her name, Patricia Millett, appointed, of course, by Barack Obama. Let's listen to the jackass on audio.
There were no procedures in place to notify people. Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Enemy Act than has happened here. If the government says we don't have to give process for that, then y'all could have put me up on Saturday and thrown me on a plane, thinking I'm a member of Nicaragua and giving me no chance to protest it. If your argument is we didn't have to do that, it's an intrusion on the president's war powers, the courts are paralyzed to do anything, then that's a misreading of precedent. It's a misreading of the text of the Alien Enemies Act. And that can't be an unlawful intrusion on the president's powers. You just can't. The president has to comply with the Constitution and laws like everybody else.
That's a tautology. She didn't say anything there. She just said the president has to comply with the Constitution. Yeah, but what does the Constitution say about the three branches of government and the president's executive powers? Maybe, Judge, since you're not a citizen, maybe you don't realize you also have to comply with the Constitution. And if you don't, and if you deliberately violate it, we should really be able to throw you off the bench, because then you're not a judge. You're some kind of a functionary of a dictatorial state. Where's the analysis in that statement? It just can't be true. The president can do this because he has to comply with the Constitution. Well, what about the president's powers under Article 2 of the Constitution? I mean, there are a couple of them implicated here, right? His ability to conduct foreign policy, his ability to take care of the national defense, and finally his power to over immigration and entry into the United States, all of which he shares to some extent with the Congress, but the lion's share of it is committed by the Constitution to him. Also, Judge, you failed to note that the courts have no role in this at all. Congress can pass laws about immigration. They can pass laws about things that will affect the ability to make war, the power of the purse. So one would say that that's a power that's shared between the two political branches of government. You also don't seem to be aware of the doctrine that courts should stay out of powers that are exclusively committed to the other two branches of government. It's called the political question doctrine. But I guess a judge who thinks that she's not a citizen would not be aware of that. I mean, this hearing was, or appeal, was an indication that this is a seriously warped district court and Court of Appeals, exceedingly dangerous to the rights of American citizens. And something should be done about it, because an awful lot of people were destroyed by these, I don't know what they are. They certainly aren't American judges. They were some kind of a sickness developed with their hatred of Trump. I used to look at the judge that was the chief judge before Boasberg. I used to look at her eyes, and I used to say to myself, this woman's got hatred, real hatred. Woo. Congress is considering two laws. One is for, well, not two laws, two actions, I should say. One is to impeach Boasberg, or Boasberg. And I know the Chief Justice said that you can't impeach or shouldn't impeach. But again, Chief, it is there in the Constitution that you can impeach judges. And it does say that judges only can remain if they're on good behavior. And deliberately misinterpreting the Constitution might very well be considered bad behavior, particularly when you're depriving hundreds and thousands of people of their constitutional rights, as they did with the January 6th people. I mean, these are dangerous people when they take away your liberty for political reasons. So the Congress has every right to impeach. You acted like it's never done, and it isn't in the Constitution. Well, it was done 15 times, successful 8. And it's right there in the Constitution. It doesn't say the president has to be on good behavior. It says he has to commit treason or high crimes and misdemeanor. But it does say the judges should serve for as long as they maintain good behavior. I'm not sure I know exactly what that means, but I do know for sure, Justice Roberts, that you're giving a false impression of the Constitution. It's also very, very strange and suspicious that you'd intervene in this, and none of the times that that constitutional rights were completely destroyed right in front of you in the District of Columbia Circuit and District Court. You didn't seem to have any sympathy for these people who were just put in prison without any due process at all. This is when we need a Chief Justice who has some spine. And I guess John Roberts is never going to go down in history as having any spine. The second thing is a law that would prevent injunctions issued by a district court to affect the entire nation. His jurisdiction is just, or hers, is just within the district. And it just applies to the parties in the case. All of a sudden, they take on being president, substitute president. That's not what a judge is. A judge is not a substitute president. And now, this is deliberate. This is a deliberate misuse of the Constitution. It's another application of lawfare. 90% of these are Democrat judges. They're complete misreadings of the statute, like this asinine judge who thinks that she can be arrested. I'm sorry she's afraid of that, But maybe if she would keep her citizenship papers out, she could avoid that. Or if she was born here, gosh, she has birthright citizenship. Well, I don't know what else they're going to do tomorrow, but you come back tomorrow and we'll let you know the truth, particularly as we did today. All the facts that were left out of the Goldberg situation, including the fact that he's hiding anything that would suggest classified material. He hasn't shown any, nor has he showed anything that equates to war plans. He says he saw such things, or he inferred that that's what they were. But I mean, this guy's is not just a judgment that you could be neutral about. This guy's just deliberately lied over and over and over and over again. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of these liars constantly misleading the American people. And then the people who are shown to have told the truth over and over again are constantly attacked. So now we're going to continue on X with America's Mayor Live. We'll also be interviewing Bernie Carrick about the prisoners and how they were treated. And we'll be back tomorrow night. God bless America.